I'm gonna change up the format for this episode. Hello everyone, we're going Lions recap time. Let's go, baby. I know I didn't make one to the Thanksgiving game, partially because that game infuriated me so much that I didn't want to, and secondly, unless you wanted me to sound like this, then you probably wouldn't have enjoyed that video anyway. Today I want to talk about the Lions game they just played this week, which was... I definitely know who they played. The Saints, yes, of course. They played the Saints this week. I knew that. This game started off really obvious. It could not have started better. 3 touchdowns right away. The defense was all over the Saints. They weren't going anywhere. The offense was absolutely on fire. And then, oh my God! And then the defense reverted back to its last month form of just letting the Saints do whatever the hell they wanted for the rest of the game mostly. The Lions offense kind of went cold, especially in the first half, and like the second quarter they didn't do a damn thing, and the Saints almost caught all the way back up. It wasn't a fun watch. I was ready to rip them a new one if they were to lose this game, and they still had time and time again, chance after chance to lose. But they didn't. The offense did wake up a little bit in the second half. It was still not as explosive as they have been in the last couple weeks, not against the Chargers at least, which was their best offensive game. It was more like the Bears game, where it would come in spurts of like you have one good drive and then a couple that would just go 3 and out, and then another really good drive, and then it would, kind of stall out. So their offense, it hasn't been as dominant in these last 3 weeks as we've seen earlier in the year, and that's matching up with the same time that the defense has absolutely fallen off a cliff. If you're gonna have a defense that's a liability like that, first off, not a good recipe for January football, but secondly, you really need your offense to be at its A game, and right now it's just not on its A game. Multiple weeks now, the Thanksgiving Day game was an absolute disaster. You know exactly what I would have said if you've been watching this channel for a little bit about that game. Just a travesty on both sides of the ball. The final score of that game is very deceiving because it looks a hell of a lot closer than it actually was. That one was the most miserable I've been watching a Lions game in quite a long time. This week, thankfully, was better, but it still doesn't feel like they're clicking on all cylinders, doesn't feel like how we would want it to feel. Now, next week, they play in Chicago in December, so weather could be a factor, could be pretty cold, could be rainy, could be snowy even, and when you have snow and you have rain, that kind of neutralizes your offense, especially when it's not clicking that well, and you have a defense that sucks, that could be a recipe for disaster. Now, good news for the Lions, they do have a pretty strong run game. Jahmyr Gibbs was really good in this game against the Saints. So was Montgomery. Both of them really for the past, even though the offense has struggled throwing the ball, the run game really hasn't been that much of a problem recently. It's, if anything, I think it's better than it was early in the year, because early in the year we were relying a lot on just volume of carries with David Montgomery getting like 30 a game in order to get to his 100. Now he's only getting like 23, 24, and he's still getting 100, and that's with Jahmyr Gibbs getting like 80 a game, roughly, 70, 80, somewhere around there. He's the explosion, he's the pop to Montgomery's power, and that is a perfect combination. That is, you want a power back, especially in December, especially in January football, that can pound the rock, and then Jahmyr Gibbs can come out and explode for a big 20-yard gain. That is exactly the dichotomy that I think this Lions offense needs. Now, bad news, Frank Ragnow, the center, did get hurt in the Saints game, and I'm not 100% sure what his availability will be going forward, especially next week. We need him back. We need him to be okay, because he is really the center of that offensive line, both literally and figuratively. He's the rock that holds that whole position group down. He's a really good center, and if you don't have him, especially late in the year, that's going to eventually become a problem. Another news, Jameson Williams, pretty fast, I would say. Give him the ball more, especially after this. Defense, I don't know what the hell to do to fix that. Aaron Glenn needs to be fired 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I really don't know. Aiden Hutchinson, he's really good. He's the best part of the defense, but you don't really have a great pass rusher on the other side. The secondary, which going into the year we all said was going to be the weakness, surprise, surprise, has been the weakness. So I don't know what the fix is for that at the current moment. I don't think there's anyone you could go out and sign. You kind of just have to wait. And this season kind of just feels like we're heading towards a playoff, maybe a win in the wild card, depending on who the matchup is, or maybe a first round exit. I don't see them getting past the divisional round, at least at this stage. They're not one of the best teams in football. Philadelphia is lucky as hell this year. San Francisco is just a dominant team when they're on. The Cowboys are good when they play inferior opponents, which I think they don't match up with the Cowboys particularly well. The Cowboys have a really good defense, and their offense is pretty good. The Lions, I don't think they'd be able to keep up with the Cowboys if they happen to meet them in the playoffs. I think they could beat the Rams if the Rams sneak in. I think obviously we saw they can beat the Packers, but they can also lose in quite horrific fashion to the same Packer group. And the Packers are getting better as the season goes, which is scary. Jordan Love has really found his stride, which I knew he was going to. I liked him in the beginning of the year. I think that he has talent to be the next franchise guy in Green Bay. So I'm not worried about Green Bay at all in terms of like how good they're going to be. Good. They're fine. They're rounding into form right now. I think give them 2 or 3 years, they might be Super Bowl contenders again. The Vikings, unluckily for Kirk Cousins, but luckily for the Lions' perspective, are kind of down at the moment. They don't have Kirk Cousins. They don't have the offense that they really need to do much. So right now, it's less about, obviously the rest of the regular season does matter. They can't just lose out, but I don't think that's gonna happen. They should be able to beat the Bears, I would assume. And then you have week 15. They play the Broncos, which got flexed into a primetime game for some reason. I don't know if that's going to be great. It depends on what version of the Broncos show up in that game. And then week 16, you got the Vikings, which would have been a scary matchup if Kirk Cousins was still healthy. Week 17, you have the Cowboys, which is a Monday night game, which is going to be, I think, the biggest test for both the Cowboys and the Lions. I think if the Cowboys can just blow out the Lions, you need to genuinely be worried about the Cowboys and what they can do in the playoffs. I think if the Lions get blown out, that really goes to show that you're just not where you need to be yet. And if it's a competitive game, even if they lose and it's a competitive game, I'm okay with that. Because I didn't think the Lions were Super Bowl contenders going into the year anyway. Best case scenario, I thought, was a wild card. Right now, they're in a position to win the division depending on how they finish out the year and how Green Bay does. I think we need to keep winning, though, because there's a very good chance Green Bay could hop us and be number one again, which would suck. And then we have to go on the road, which isn't fantastic. And then week 18, we finish with the Vikings again. So, I don't know. I'm excited for the rest of the year. I guess we'll have to see. I'm a little worried that the Lions are not playing their best ball right now, which is what you really need. But only time will tell how the rest of the season will unfold. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different video. A little bit more rambly, but hey, it gets the watch time up. I'm still a little sick, but I'm mostly over it. So maybe next week I'll go back to the normal format, unless you guys like this one. Then I'll keep it like this. It'll be all fun and good for the rest of the year. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode, where we play the Bears, and I'll either complain or complain. Goodbye.